Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Danker Family Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Jensen. Going into week two of our fantasy season. Man, week one went by so fast, a little too fast, to be honest with you, but it's all good. Now, before we get onto it, I just want to live up to my promises of holding myself accountable. I was 4 for 5. Last week, I predicted that I would beat Garrett. I was wrong. Good job, Garrett, for proving me wrong. But I got the rest right. I predicted Mom would beat Adrian. That happened. I predicted Carrie would beat Carol. That happened. I thought Ben would beat Dad. And I thought Tom would beat John. Now, I think I got Ben and Tom. I thought they would both slightly win, but they were the two biggest winners in terms of margin of victory. So I got that part of it wrong. But I did get Carrie slightly beating Carol. Now, you could argue really wasn't a slight win, but when they both get under 100 points, it's kind of hard to call it a slight win. Anyway, I kid. But yeah, moving on though to week two. This is bound to be a very exciting week here. But to before we go on to the matchups real quick, just some interesting transactions that went on. Now I'm not going to go over all of them to, bore you to death or anything like that, but just some that I found a bit interesting on my end. So obviously, Aaron Rodgers out for the season, man. What a blow to Jets fans everywhere. That's just so depressing. 4 plays in and your entire season's done. So um, feel bad for you Jets fans. And also my backup quarterback's gone, so I had to go with Jordan Love. I had to go with the new Packer. So and he looked pretty good against Chicago. So we'll see if he can keep it up. So just one significant note, something to note there, especially if Tua struggles later this season and Jordan Love just keeps getting better and better. Um, Another one, Carrie. I think I saw this somewhere up here. She added the Giants defense. I really like that ad, Carrie. Way to go. I mean, you're really paying attention to those matchups, and I can appreciate that. So good pickup, Carrie. I also think a sneaky pickup that I saw on here that I really think will actually be a lot better than most people think. Uncle Tom picked up Tyler Algier from Atlanta. Now, I know a lot of people like, Bijan Robinson, he's the guy, he's the top draft pick. I think this situation going down in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, I find it I think it's going to be very similar to what happened last year in Detroit with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Now, last year DeAndre Swift was easily the number one running back for the Lions on their depth chart and their roster. But Jamal Williams ended up leading the league in touchdown runs last year because he was a vulture. They just used him in the red zone. They used him in those short gain situations when they need like third and short, fourth and short, goal to go situations. Jamal Williams was the man, and he just kept eating up those touchdowns while DeAndre Swift was getting the yards, the receptions. So not to say that Bijan won't do good. I think Bijan will do good. He'll get his fair share of catches. He'll get a lot of yards. But when it comes to getting in the end zone, Algier is just that guy, man. I mean, last week we even saw it. I mean, Bijan did get a touchdown, but Algier got two, and Algier didn't even do much on the ground. He was just the red zone guy for Atlanta. So I actually think that Tom is, he's got some method to his madness here. So I really do think that's a sneaky good pickup for Uncle Tom. Good job, UT. And then some other ones to note, Carroll picking up Sam Laporta, who's a young tight end who has a lot of promise, and obviously dropping Kadarius Toney. Now, I mean, after that Week 1 performance, you got to punish him somehow, right, Carroll? I mean, seriously, that was pathetic. I mean, he you could argue that he cost the Chiefs the game. But yeah, so good pickup there, Carroll. Another interesting pickup I found, or thought was really interesting was where was it? Oh, here it is. John Lopp dropping Dak Prescott and picking up Josh Kelly. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Austin Eckler's doubtful for Sunday. So actually, that might be a good short-term pickup by John there. Way to get on top of that, John. Good job. Dak Prescott, I mean, he'll be fine. I mean, yeah, it's not a good matchup for Dak this week against the Jets defense, but Dak's one of those guys where you just got to be careful when you add him, when you drop him. I feel like, Dak's a guy who has those weeks where he has that ability to get you 30 plus points. It's possible. He goes off on occasion. So you just never know. You got to be able to pick him up at the right time. And John picking up Josh Kelly, I think is a good smart move. Now, will it work in the long term? Probably not. But for a short term matchup, I think that's a good pickup, John. And then I went with my funny pickup here. I picked up Puka Nakua. Um, I'm buying into the Puka hype, and I dropped Juju. So I called this the funny name transaction. Puka adding Puka, dropping Juju. So try to say that 5 times fast. And then lastly, the one that sort of shocked me a bit. Mom, dropping your boy, Alan Lazard, dropping your fellow Cyclone. Man, I mean, I get it, right? I mean, Alan Lazard's probably not going to do too much now, especially with Rodgers out for the season. You know, Zach Wilson, he's going to be going to Garrett Wilson pretty much most of the time, and maybe a few other. I mean, Lazard will get his fair share of catches too, but Zay Jones did well last week, so I think that's. I mean, when you're looking at it just strictly from fantasy, yeah, it's a good pickup, but Mom's a sentimental person. You know, Mom really loves her Cyclones, so she's that surprised me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. All right. And then also one last thing to know, I found this on the ESPN fantasy site. I never noticed this before. I don't know if this is new just for this year or if it's been a thing before, but there's the waiver report and it shows who everyone picked up specifically on waivers. And the only reason I'm showing you this is because it shows you the unsuccessful ones. So it shows you uh, who had failed attempts at picking up players. Now, this one's a little interesting because it shows that Tom failed at picking up Kyron Williams and Roshan Johnson, but I think Tom actually did end up getting Kyron Williams, and no one has Roshan now. I think he's a free agent, so I don't know what that's for. But Carol, John beat you to it. John beat you to the Browns defense. So if you really wanted Cleveland's defense this week, blame John. He got there right before you. He was just one step ahead of you there. So, but yeah, but waiver order it changes week to week. So it'll be interesting to see uh how it goes throughout the season, you know, who wants who, like we'll see just who are the most coveted players. I find that to be very interesting. But now for the main event, going to the matchups. Now, I am recording this the Friday after the Thursday night game, so yes, it makes it a little bit easier for me to predict. I get that. Um, but I didn't really have enough time to make one, you know, right on Thursday and put it out before the game. So I just decided, you know, I'm just going to make these Friday, and if Thursday night game affects these predictions or makes them easier for me, then whatever, you know. But moving on, so the first matchup, myself versus Carrie, even Stevens, Phoenix Cheeseheads, you know, that little sibling rivalry. I'm trying to get my first win of the season. Carrie's trying to stay undefeated. So this should be, I think it's going to be a very close matchup. Uh, Tua versus the Patriots and she has Trevor versus the Chiefs. Now, I'm going to give Carrie the slight edge at quarterback. Um, Trevor Lawrence is playing at home against the defending Super Bowl champs. That crowd's going to be amped up. They know they have a good contending team in Jacksonville. Whereas Tua, he's coming off a great game. Don't get me wrong, and I was grateful for it. And I hope I'm wrong making this prediction. But the Patriots defense looked really good against Philly last week. They know how to shut good offenses down historically, and plus it's on the road too for Tua. And I know it was on the road last week, but I think that Patriots defense is a tough one to figure out, and they're gonna be playing on Sunday Night Football too in prime time, so they're gonna show out. So I'm gonna give Carey the slight edge at quarterback this week. When it comes to running back, I'm also gonna give Carey a slight edge. Nick Chubb is playing a worse run defense in Pittsburgh. Uh, San Francisco ran all over Pittsburgh. Now, is that because of San Francisco or is that because of the Steelers defense? We don't know, but I do feel like Nick Chubb is going to have a real nice game against Pittsburgh. And Jahmyr Gibbs, you know, he had a pretty solid effort his first game. Now, if again, we're assuming that this is what Carey's starting lineup's going to be. She could easily make changes, but I don't see her putting Breece Hall in because he is questionable. And even if he does play, you know, it's the Dallas defense was just incredible against the Giants last week. So I don't think the running game will do as well, especially when they know that they don't really have to defend the pass that much against the Jets, you know, especially without Aaron Rodgers. So they're going to be specifically focused on the run game defensively. Dallas will against the Jets. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Carey keep Breece Hall on the bench. But yeah, so Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he'll be fine. He'll have a good game against Seattle. And Seattle struggled too last week against the run as well, against another rookie running back, Kyron Williams. So yeah, I do like Carey's running backs a little bit more than mine. I mean, Derrick Henry, he was okay last week. I mean, he could have done better. I hope he does better this week at home. But you know, I don't know. The the longer that it's been since draft day, the more I'm rethinking my draft picks here at running back because Derrick Henry, yes, now he's been great his career, but he is getting up there in age a little bit, and when you're so focused on the run game, teams prepare for that so much. It's really hard to, you know, it's really hard to keep that dominance, keep that staying power and that dominance. I mean, I'm hoping for the best for Derrick Henry. And then Miles Sanders, I do like him. I just don't like the matchup. The Saints defense did really well last week against Derrick Henry, so I have a feeling that they might do well against him too. Now, I could switch him out with Najee Harris. I also don't like Najee Harris's matchup against Cleveland because Cleveland dominated the run game against Cincinnati. So it's a tough one for me. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm in a little bit of a running back crisis right now. So, um, but I mean, it'll be a game time decision for me. Thankfully, both of them play Monday night, so it's not one of those, oh, I got to make a decision right at Sunday. But um, yeah, it'll be tough, but still, either way, I'm gonna give Carey the slight edge at running back. And then when we go to wide receivers, I'm actually gonna give myself the edge a little bit here. Now, I like Amon-Ra, I like T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins will have a bounce back week. Last week he didn't do anything against Cleveland. But I think, that's just one of those Cincinnati struggles against the Browns all the time. And I think the Bengals will figure some things out, open up that passing game a little bit more. But uh, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, both great number one receivers. Devontae, I think he'll get a lot with Jacoby Myers being out for Sunday's game with a concussion against Buffalo. Even though the Bills have a great defense, don't get me wrong. And it's on the road too. It's in Buffalo. I just think Devontae is too good. And then that Raiders offense, they're going to need someone, especially against Buffalo. So, and knowing Devontae, he knows how to come out in big games. So I like that for him. And then Keenan Allen, he had a really good effort last week against Miami. I think he does that again against Tennessee. Now Tennessee allowed, I think, Chris Olave to get 19 points last week against as him being their number one receiver. So Titans defense, even though they did well against the Saints in totality, I think Keenan Allen will have a real nice game. I think he'll get at least 15 points in this game. So overall, I'm gonna go with my receivers. Slight edge for me at receiver. Tight end, I'm also gonna go with my tight end's just a slight favorite over Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry wasn't even drafted. I think Kerry picked him up, but and he did score a touchdown last week against Philly. I just Kyle Pitts has got to do something, or this is kind of more of like, hoping. I mean, I'll be honest, like Kyle Pitts did okay. I mean, he didn't do that well last week, but he's got a lot of potential. I think Green Bay gave up the majority of their receptions to tight ends last week rather than receivers. Against the Bears, Cole Kmet had more receptions than DJ Moore did, than Darnell Mooney did. So I think Green Bay plus Green Bay's they got some good cornerbacks. Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, the good secondary for Green Bay. So their coverages on linebackers are not as good as they are against receivers. So I do think Kyle Pitts will do a little bit better this week. Hunter Henry, it's just the Patriots. It's just so hard, like you don't really know what you're getting from the New England's offense. It's like they struggled a little bit, or like moving on to the game in the second half, they kind of came alive, but you know, I just don't see Hunter Henry as a consistent, productive tight end. So I'm gonna go with Kyle Pitts and give me the slight edge there. At flex, I think this is a tough one, but I'm gonna go with myself slightly just because Jamal Williams, he didn't do well last week. I think that changes this week. He goes going against a much younger defense in Carolina. Uh, I think Jamal Williams gets, his good game this week on Monday night against Carolina. Um, James Cook, he's the number one back for Buffalo. The Raiders' run defense looked pretty well against Denver. Now, again, we don't know if that's the Raiders' defense. We don't know if that's the Broncos' run game. I guess week two is kind of the week to figure out, what's the truth and we're not, or what's looking more like the truth, I guess is a better way to say it. But I will pick Jamal a little bit slightly over James just because I like his matchup more. Uh, and then defense. I'm gonna go carry with the slight advantage here. Now, San Francisco's defense is dominant. Don't get me wrong. The Rams shocked everyone last week with their offense against Seattle. I saw a lot of people pick up Seattle's defense last week in other leagues, and it shocked them. So, I mean, there's a chance that LA just shocks everyone again. Who knows? But looking at this, I do think the Giants' defense was a great pickup for Carey. Arizona's just they're a mess of a franchise right now. They're going through a rebuilding process, and even though the Giants got the doors blown off of them last week, that was against a whole different beast in Dallas. And the Giants are gonna bounce back because they're playing a weak Cardinals team that can't even do well at home. Like I think they've won one home game since well, they won one home game all last year, and then the year before that, they won their first three and then lost the rest. So it's like from October of 21 through now, they've only won one home game, and that's just like the Cardinals do worse at home than they do on the road. So I actually do like the Giants defense there. So I'm going to give Carey the slight advantage there. And then kicker's going to be push. I did pick up a new kicker just because I feel like San Francisco's going to score a lot this year, and Jake Moody was perfect his first career game. So you know what? Screw it. Go with the rookie kicker. Why not? We'll see how it goes. But so yeah, overall though, with all that being said, I'm giving myself a slight victory. And this is not a bash at Carey. I think Carey's got a chance to beat me, a real good chance. But I just can't. If I go 0 and 2, I'm the defending champ. I can't go 0 and 2. So carry a lot of pressures on me. So that must feel good for you. And I actually like some of the decisions you've made at least. I mean, Kirk Cousins scored 28 points, so that might be hard for Trevor Lawrence. Again, who would have saw that coming? But that might be hard for Trevor to live up to. But I like you sitting DJ Moore. I like you sitting Marquise Brown. I think those are both better sits than having them sit other than whoever you got on your starting lineup. So, but overall, I'm gonna predict that I slightly beat you out. I hope I'm right, but we'll see how it goes. Next matchup is Adrian versus Ben. So, Adrian, I know that I've been mean to you. I know that you think I haven't been fair to you. And you know what? Things are going to change this episode because I think you're going to win this one easily. How about that, Adrian? Look at me showing you some love. Uh, but yeah, and nothing against Ben, by the way. I mean, Ben, I love you. You're a great guy. Um, you know, your team did well last week. I think things change this week. I really do. Just looking at the matchup right now, I think, and this is gonna surprise some people, but I think Daniel Jones does way better than Justin Fields this week. I like him a lot better. I mean, yes, horrible performance against Cowboys. We get it. Dallas is that's a whole different subject. You're playing a very weak Cardinals team. Daniel Jones easily going to bounce back from this game. I'm very close to saying guaranteeing, and if I do that, then it really puts me on spot if he does if he does really bad. But I do think Daniel Jones will bounce back, and he'll go off against Arizona. Justin Fields on the road, like after that rocky start last week, on the road against the Bucks defense that I think is very underrated. A lot of people are kind of overlooked the Bucks this year just because Tom Brady was gone. A lot of people don't remember that they still have some kick-ass linebackers on that squad. They got a decent secondary with some young studs like Antoine Winfield Jr. So I put Justin Fields struggled so bad last week. I don't know. It might be recency bias for me, but I think Daniel Jones does a lot better than Justin Fields. So I'm going to give that edge to Adrian. At running back, now, if if I had done this before Thursday night's game, I probably would have given the edge. I would have given Ben a heavy favorite at running back, but because DeAndre Swift played so well, he didn't do anything last week. I think last week, what do you have like 7 yards or 7 points or something like that? I'm not sure exactly the point he had last week, but DeAndre Swift didn't do that well last week, if I recall. But he went off last night against the Vikings, 27 points. That's incredible. So just that alone, ETN, he had a good game against the Colts. I'm not sure if he can, you know, I'm not saying he's a bad running back by any means. I like Travis Etienne, but the matchup for him, I don't think he's going to be able to match DeAndre's 27 points. So I got to give that edge to DeAndre, and Christian McCaffrey's going to do well against the Rams, but I also think Stevenson will do fine against Dolphins. But with that being said, with DeAndre's performance last night, um, I just think it's going to be a little bit too much for Ben to overcome. So and I do like the potential McCaffrey and ETN have together as a tandem, but just the fact that we already know what DeAndre Swift did, I'm giving Adrian that edge at running back just slightly. And then wide receiver, and again, this is just goes back to yesterday. AJ Brown only got basically 7 points. So and plus right now Hopkins is questionable. I don't know if he'll play. I think I'm going to assume that Hopkins doesn't play, and if he does, I think Adrian will flip him and Lamb. Um, that's just what I'm going to take out of it. But if you just have Diggs and Lamb, I like that matchup unknown over a AJ Brown known 7 and Calvin Ridley unknown against Kansas City. So I'm going Adrian with the slight edge at wide receiver. And that tight end, this one's conditional on if Mark Andrews plays or not. If Mark Andrews plays, there's no doubt about it. He's one of the top elite tight ends in the NFL. So if he plays, that's going to Adrian. Sorry, Ben. I don't even think you have any other tight end. I mean, yeah, you have Cole Kmet, but Njoku's good. He's good, but he's not Mark Andrews good. And you know that the way Lamar struggled last week, even though they won, Lamar struggled, and I do think Mark Andrews will help him out greatly. So I'll give that edge to you, Adrian. And then when it comes to flex, I'm gonna give that one to Ben. Obviously, I'm assuming that DeAndre Hopkins won't play. No, even if he does play, I'm still gonna give that edge to Ben slightly. Chris Godwin, I like Godwin against the Bears defense more than I do Hopkins versus the Chargers, or even like London versus if he were to play Drake London, I don't like that at all for you, Adrian, because Jair Alexander is a real number one corner in this league and he's locked down. So and plus JK Dot, you can't play JK, he's out for the year. And then Gibson, Charbonnet, Elliott, those guys don't even you know those are like emergency only kind of guys in my opinion. So I'm gonna give Ben the slight edge at flex. And then at defense, I'm actually going to go Ben uh, advantage here because we already know what the Eagles did. We already know how it looked last night for the Eagles. Atlanta's very run heavy. I mean, but they do a lot of dink and dunk passes to Bijan and Tyler Algier. So and Cordell Patterson, who knows how he's going to look like the rest of the season. But uh, overall, I like the Packers defense more than the Eagles for this week. Obviously, we already know what happened to the Eagles, so I think the Packers will get more than 6 points. So I'll give Ben the slight edge there. And then at kicker, even though most of the times it's a push, since we already know Greg Joseph only got 4, I think Tucker's gonna get at least 8. So and he's projected at 8. There we go. So I'll give Adrian the edge at kicker. So with all that being said, I do like Adrian's team this week a lot more than Ben. I think Adrian's going to win this game easily. Is there anything Ben could do to change that? Not really. I mean, like Amari Cooper, and I think you could have Amari and Chris Godwin interchange, and it won't make that much of a difference, in my opinion. But we'll see. So, yeah, I'm gonna give Adrian the win here, and you better thank me when I'm right, Adrian. And Ben, you better scold me if I'm wrong. So, moving on to game 3. Joan, my mom, Tennessee touchdowns versus UT Beach Desert. Mom, I am so sorry. We got another sibling rivalry here. We got sister versus brother, just like me versus Carrie. Um, Only this time I don't think it's gonna be even close. Mom, I love you, you know I do, but Uncle Tom's gonna run with it, gonna run with it, run away with this. I can't even speak, man. But yeah, I will say I think Josh Allen bounces back and has a better performance against the Raiders this week. I think he'll actually outscore Mahomes. I think Mahomes playing in hot, humid Jacksonville in middle of September against in front of a packed Jacksonville crowd who they're going to be loud and proud for that team because they just came off a division championship and Jacksonville's a pretty solid contender this year. So I think they're all going to be hyped to face the defending champs, see if they can prove how good of a team they are, that they're not just a one-hit wonder, that Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. And I think, and I know Mahomes isn't playing Trevor Lawrence, but that Jacksonville squad, the defense, they're going to want to step up. So, and I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game. I just think Josh Allen will do better this week in this matchup than Patrick Mahomes will do in his. So I'll give Mom the slight advantage at quarterback. However, I think almost everything else, Tom's just got the better team. I'm sorry. I mean, Austin Eckler, I don't even know if you know this, Mom, but Austin Eckler's doubtful. So he's most likely not going to play. So you better take him out of the starting lineup and replace him. You might, I'm going to assume that you'll replace him with Raheem Mostert, or I mean, I guess you could also do Justice Hill or Samaje, but yeah, it's not look your running back room's not looking good, especially when Madison only got you 4.9, basically 5 points last night. So yeah, and Josh Jacobs, solid number one running back, and Kenneth Walker being the number one running back for Seattle. I like Tom's potential at running back a lot more than yours, especially with Eckler's injury. So Tom's getting the edge there. Tom's also getting the edge at receiver, especially since we know Devontae got 23 points against the Vikings last night. Tyreek Hill, insane. Like he'll I would be shocked if he wasn't the top scoring receiver at the end of this year in fantasy. Just it again, if everyone stays healthy, if Tua is healthy, if he's healthy, if the whole offense keeps, if they are very consistent this year. So and Garrett Wilson, it sucks because you would have loved Garrett Wilson as like a great number one receiver with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, but now that Zach Wilson's his quarterback again, I see Garrett Wilson more in that like wide receiver two kind of category. He's not like a clear cut number one guy anymore, which sucks because I think he's a great receiver, made a great catch on Monday Night Football against Buffalo. Um, I don't know, but they did play together for a full year last year, so who knows? I could be wrong, but I still give the edge at receiver to Tom. And then tight end again, since we already know TJ Hawkinson's got 25 points. That was a great game by TJ last night. Darren Waller, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll bounce back better than he did last week, but he won't get 25 points. I really don't. I doubt he'll get 25 points. So uh, give Tom the edge there. Give Tom the edge at flex, especially since Mom doesn't have many, in my opinion, that many quality options at flex where Tom, he's got a lot of good options. I mean, you got even if even if you don't play David Montgomery, you got Christian Watson. If he plays, now he might not play, but if he does, he's a solid flex option. Brandon Ayuk scored 32 points last week. I mean, you got Michael Thomas, who yes, he's not the same guy he used to be, but he did pretty well last week against Tennessee. And then even Tyler Algier, who that sneaky good pickup, who could be a vulture, or even Kyron Williams, the young guy from the Rams. It's just Tom's got options for days, and I really like that for him. And Mom's options just don't seem as plentiful. So I'll give Tom the edge there. Now I probably will give Mom the edge at defense special teams just because the Cowboys defense was insane and they're playing a Jets team without Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, so Mom will probably have a better defense, and then kicker is probably going to be a push. But overall, I'm giving Tom the heavy win here. I think he'll run away with it. Um, Mom, I love you. Please know that. But Uncle Tom's probably going to win this game and go 2-0 to stay undefeated. So moving on to the fourth game, we have CB's Titans, Carroll versus Dad, Nashville Packer fan. Two teams that are both of trying to avoid that dreadful 0-2, and no one wants to be there. So And since we already know how good Jalen Hurts did last night against the Vikings, I'm going to give Carroll the slight edge at quarterback. Now, I think Lamar will have a good game against Cincinnati, but since we already know, again, makes it a little bit easier for me. I know, but I'm going to give Carroll the slight edge at QB there. At running back, I'm also going to give Carroll slight edge. Rashad White didn't do much last week against Minnesota, but he is playing the Bears defense, and the Bears run defense was horrific last week against Green Bay. Joe Mixon's going to bounce back, no doubt. I think the entire Bengals offense will bounce back. I know the Ravens have a good defense, but I cannot fathom the Bengals starting this poorly to start. And I know last year the Bengals started 0-2. I remember that, but it was different. Their offense was at least functional last. If they have two straight games of very subpar offensive performances, and then I don't know, it's gonna be a lot of big question marks coming out of Cincinnati. So I do like that Joe Mixon Rashad White combo a little bit more than the Pollard Connor. I don't like. I mean, Pollard's a good guy to start. I get it, but just his matchup, the Jets defense, uh, pretty good against the run. So, um, yeah, and it's gonna be a low scoring game, that Dallas Jets game. I really think so. So, it's just a bad matchup for Pollard this week. Now I know I see what his projections are, Dad. I see it, but I'm just going with my gut here. James Conner, another solid running back to have. Unfortunately, I think he'll be fine, but I just don't see him getting more than like 13, 14 points this week. Now, again, I could be wrong, but that's just based on, what I saw from last week against Washington. Now, I know they have a better front seven. The Giants were embarrassed on prime time last week, and I think they're going to come out guns blazing. They're going to be just shut down, locked down on D. They're going to be super aggressive against this Cardinals team, and the Cardinals, with them having their home woes as it already is, like I just don't see them doing much against the Giants. I really don't. So I like Carroll at the running back position here. At wide receiver, I will give Dad the slight advantage. I think Chris Olave is a true number one receiver. Uh, Jamar Chase will bounce back, but if Mark Andrews plays for Baltimore, I think Zay Flowers' production drops a little bit. I really do. Now I think he's a great player, and looking at her bench, not really another. I mean, she could go with the high risk, high reward play in Romeo Dobbs, but it's just he's not a sure thing. Like he's not consistent enough yet. As a Packer fan, I hope he is. But for now, if this is her starting lineup, I'm gonna go with Dad just slightly. Debo Samuel didn't do that much last week, but with the 49ers, it's one of those like, one week it's this guy, one week it's that guy. It's like last week it was Ayuk. So there's a very good possibility that it's someone else. It was Ayuk and McCaffrey last week that did well. This week it's likely that, maybe it's Kittle and Samuel, or maybe it's, Elijah Mitchell and Jawan Jennings. Like who knows? But I do think Debo historically does well against the Rams. So I do like their matchups more than Jamar Chase and Zay Flowers. Not saying they won't do good, but I'll give Dad the slight edge at receiver. At tight end, I'm giving Dad the heavy favorite. When Travis Kelce is coming back, so that's good for Dad. I like that for him. Sorry, Evan Ingram he's just a guy you plug and play. He's a Jag. He's literally a Jag. He's a Jaguar, but he's also just a guy. He's a Jag. So I'm gonna give Dad the heavy favorite there at tight end. At flex, it pained me to see Isaiah Pacheco do so poorly last week. I think he'll be fine this week, but I'm going to give Dad the slight edge at flex just because Michael Pittman was very good last week. Surprisingly, that too, and he's playing a young Houston defense this week. Battle of two rookie quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud. One of them is going to get their first career win, but I think Michael Pittman does well against this Houston defense. Uh, Kansas City's with Kelsey coming back. I don't know. Like I see Mahomes getting a little bit more antsy as a thrower this weekend than he will handing the ball off or even like screening it with Pacheco. So I'm gonna go with Dad there. At defense, I'm also gonna go Dad. And I think it's gonna be not even close. I think Dad's a heavy favorite at the defense. I don't trust this Houston defense. I know they got D'Amico Ryan's as their head coach, but I just and I know they're playing a rookie QB in Anthony Richardson, but Richardson looked very impressive, just to dare I say, last week against Jacksonville. Um, and the Saints defense held their own against Tennessee, and they're playing Carolina, who they have a young offense too, with a rookie QB with Bryce Young. So I like the Saints' chances more than I do Houston. So I'm gonna give Dad the favorite there, and kicker is a push. So overall, I'm gonna give my dad the win here. So there you go, Dad. I think you'll get the win, solely based off the receivers, the tight ends, the flex, and the defense. Carroll's got you at QB and running back, in my opinion, but the rest, I think it's all you. So I'm gonna give Dad a slight win here. And then moving on to the final game of the week, Garrett, my week one nemesis, versus John Lott. Uh, boy, this was kind of tough. I'm not gonna lie. Joe Burrow did pretty poorly last week, but he'll bounce back. Like I said, I think most of the Bengals will bounce back this week. Justin Herbert had a solid game last week. They're both now Herbert on the road. I don't like, and I know they're playing Tennessee, but I don't like Herbert as much on the road than I do with him at home. Joe Burrow, again, I think he'll bounce back. So I'm going to give Garrett a slight edge at QB here. When it comes to running backs, though, I think it's all John. I mean, Aaron Jones, I really want him to play. I really do, but he's not. It's not looking good. He's questionable, but he hasn't practiced all week. I'm not sure Aaron Jones is going to play, and even if he does play, I think he might be limited. So, and plus Dameon Pierce, he's a solid running back, but I just don't think he's up to the level of Saquon or Bijan at this point. So, John's easily got the running back advantage, in my opinion. Uh, at receiver, since we already know Justin Jefferson got 25 points, and he's got DK the number one, and Tyler's or John's wide receiver one this week, as of now, is Tyler Lockett, who's Seattle's wide receiver two. So, and his second wide receiver is game. Now, I guess you could really flip these two because Jalen's playing later, so you want to put him later. But even if it was Waddle and Lockett instead of Davis and Lockett, I'm still going to give Garrett the edge with DK and Justin Jefferson, two superstar wide receivers. Um, and then at tight end, this one's kind of close. Kittle has more of a potential to go off, like I said earlier with Debo. The 49 one week it changes every week with the 49ers in terms of who their superstar is. So Kittle's got more of a reason. You have more of a reason to think Kittle's going to do better. They both were fine last week. I'm going to give Kittle the slight advantage here, just out of respect for him. When it comes to flex, if this is how now, if I'm just gonna pretend, and I know I really shouldn't be doing it this way, but this is how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pretend that John has Jalen as his wide receiver two, Jalen Waddle, and Gabe as his flex. Now, yeah, again, either way, it's gonna be a receiver because John really doesn't have the running back unless he plays Josh Kelly, which if he plays Josh Kelly, then there may be a shot that Josh Kelly does better than Mike Evans. Um, but I'm going to give Garrett the edge as of now to Mike Evans. Mike Evans had a great game last week against Minnesota, and the Bears defense does not scare me one bit. So I really like Mike Evans, and I know there's other options for Baker Mayfield to throw to, but he seemed to get really comfortable throwing to Mike. So and plus the Bears, I think I read an article that the Bears have one of the heaviest zone defenses in all of the NFL, and Mike Evans picks apart zone defenses. He does. Now, obviously, Baker's got to throw to Mike, but Mike Evans does really well against zone defense. So I like that matchup for for Garrett with Mike Evans as his flex. And then defense. Garrett pulled a fast one on me last week. He had Miami slotted there, and that made me confident. And then Sunday morning, he picked up the Falcons defense and dropped Miami. So as of now, as it looks now, I would give John the advantage on defense because I think Cleveland's defense is much better than Atlanta's. Atlanta played a rookie QB last week, a young Carolina team. I think Green Bay is more of a competent offense for them to play, but who knows? John, you got to be careful. Garrett's gonna he's gonna pick up a defense Sunday morning and he's gonna throw you off, and you're gonna be like, oh shoot. Now I just gotta hope my guys actually come out. So, but as of it shows right now, I'll give John the edge at defense. but who knows? And then yeah, Jake Elliott got 12 points. He made a 61-yard field goal last night. That was pretty cool, but um yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Chargers kicker will get double digits. We'll see. But overall, since Garrett has the great wide receivers, I'm going to give him the edge at quarterback, the edge at receivers, slight edge at tight end, edge at flex. This is going to be a close game. And I like John at running back and defense. And quarterback's going to be it's going to be really close. This is a really hard one for me. I'm going to be honest with you. But sorry, John. I'm going to give Garrett the flex just because he beat me. I got to respect him. I got to respect him. He beat me last week. I don't know, even though Aaron Jones might not play. So again, if Aaron Jones plays, then I think Garrett wins. I do. But I'm guessing Aaron Jones won't play, so he's probably going to be forced to pick up someone or play Jerick McKinnon. If that happens, I think it's very close, and John does have a chance to win. A much better chance, honestly. But if Aaron Jones plays, Garrett's going to win, in my opinion. So, yep, those were my predictions for week 2 fantasy football in our wonderful Danker Family Fantasy Football League. So it was great to talk, great to go over the matchups. Can't wait to see how right I am, how wrong I am, how we all do this week. Excited for week 2, and yeah, that's the video. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and yeah, this has been the Danker Family Fantasy Football Podcast. See you guys later.